back. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my advice that I would give to parents with autistic children or neurodiverse children. Advice number one, I would advise all parents to not compare their child to other children, because at the end of the day, they are especially an autistic to a non-autistic, because they do not think the same. They do not have the same brain. They're never going to be the same, ever. They're never going to act the same way as a non-autistic child. So it would just save yourself a lot of upset and your child a lot of upset of you being like, why can't my child just be like this other child? Because I can assure you the grass is always greener. If you might have these problems because your child is autistic, just means you have different problems. It does not mean that a non-autistic child doesn't have other problems. You just don't know about them and they're not as obvious and they can be hidden quite well. So yeah, like I said, the grass is always greener. I feel like I've seen a lot of other parents do this. I don't think my mum's ever done it, but I've seen a lot of parents be like, why aren't you like this child? Or why aren't you like so-and-so's daughters, my friend daughters? I don't even know. But people are like that and they kind of just say it out of anger. But even internally, they don't have to say something. Sometimes they can just automatically compare. And I do get that most times it is your mind just goes there to comparing yourself to other children. But at the end of the day, that child, just because that child doesn't have a meltdown or react the same way as your child, there is other problems going on. The parent will still deal with other things. Like, for example, for me, I never went to parties. As a young teenager, I never went to parties. I never stayed up all night. I never lied to my parents about going out or where I was. I'd always be honest with my parents. And my mum had to watch other parents, her friends, go through all that, go through the lying, go through all that. And she said that she couldn't have gone through that. So like I said, the grass is always greener. Other parents also have other problems with their child, like they have other behavioural problems. Advice number two, don't tell your autistic child that they need to get used to change, because change is inevitable. Especially when they're young and especially when they're a child, because they won't understand that. They won't understand that. I never understood that. And it's like, although change is inevitable and that is the reality, that is the truth, change does happen and you can never get away from that. Saying to an autistic child that they need to get used to change is like telling somebody that no longer has the use of their legs to get up and walk to the shop. It's kind of the same thing in a more physical, mental, one's physical, one's mental. And it's like, if a child's being really blunt, like for me, I would get really upset when my parents would be like, you need to stop being really, like, maybe not blunt. I don't think she would have said blunt, because I don't think as a child I would have even understood what that means. But basically, I need to not be as honest. That was very difficult for me as a child, because I didn't understand. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I was so adamant that I was doing the right thing, because I also have a need to be right in every situation, and I always think I'm right. I don't know if that's an autistic thing or it's just my family genes and whatnot, but yeah, I do have a need to be right, and I genuinely could not see why what I was saying to someone, that someone said, do you like this dress? And I'd be like, no. If I didn't like that dress, then why would I lie about it and say that I could never get my head around that as a child. And children are naturally more blunt anyway. Most children are quite like that. Not just autistic children, but to be autistic, it's a lot more magnified. It happens a lot more common. Right, if I say all my words all messed up and all mumble jumbled and sentences all mumble jumbled, please just I mean, I understand if it's annoying you, it's annoying me, but please ignore it. So yeah, like I said, telling a child who is autistic to not be blunt or to get used to change, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work like that. It's like telling somebody that is worried not to worry. No, I'm cured now. Sorry, sorry, I'm cured. Just told me not to worry, or you just told me to get used to it. I can do that. I can do that now. It don't work like that. Anyway, so yeah. Tip, advice number 3, basically, don't always take advice from other parents or from people that are, don't always take advice from other parents that maybe have non-autistic children or even have autistic children. Even with me, I'm autistic and I am telling you my advice or what I would want my mum and my parents to do or to stop doing. But I'm not the same as your child who is autistic. Your child might want something completely different to my advice. This is kind of more like a third party, what I would want. And yeah, sure, if you want to try these things, try them, but there's no pressure on you to try any of these things. Listen to them, sure, so listen to what other parents have to say, but don't, sometimes advice from other parents isn't always the right advice, just like this might not be the right advice for you. So just because it worked for one parent does not mean it is going to work. Me and my mum have a very unique relationship. It has been criticised by other parents and looked at by other parents because me and my mum are so close. She is like my mum and my best friend in one, and some people say that that's wrong. Without my mum, I probably wouldn't have got through my teenage years because of the fact that I was lonely at points. And yeah, and even though my mum is a non-autistic, we are so alike. We're so alike in so many ways, so my brain kind of connects with it, and I've never felt like that with another neurotypical person. So yeah, my point is that don't listen to people when they're telling you not to do something. Maybe listen to say if they've said that this works or this works, whereas if a parent criticizes you and tells you to stop doing something that already does work, don't listen. Okay, so number 4, try and be patient. Thing is, I understand how difficult it will be for a non-autistic parent to understand the difficulties of an autistic child because they can't understand it, because they can't relate to it, because they can't relate to a situation. It can cause more anger. Try and be as patient and as understanding as you possibly can be. But it is difficult because you can't relate to that. And I know that there's been several times where my mum's had to be patient for me I once went on holidays. Something always happens to me on a holiday. Always. But for example, one time we went to Mexico and I foolishly, even though I knew I was going to be, I don't know why I did it. I think back to myself and I don't know why I did it. Basically, I was on this boat trip and I decided it was a good idea to go in the sea. I know for a fact, sea and me do not get along, and neither do beaches and neither does sand. None of it gets on, but I somehow wanted to get off this boat into the sea. So I did. Being in the sea was fine. We were all in the sea. I got out of the sea and I was so sticky and I remember walking around like that because I couldn't have any parts of my body, like my arms, like everything was just sticking and it was horrible, and no one understood why I was in desperate need of a shower. We then got off the boat for this on like an island, and there was a beach, and I thought, you know what, thank God we're off the boat, I can get into some water because there's showers on beaches, and there wasn't any showers on the beach. So basically we went to go travel to this island that was supposed to be looking around and having a few drinks and looking around shops, sunbathing, etc. What you do on a beach. No, we spent the entire day looking for a shower, and I ended up having to go into a car wash, this like car thing, this garage, and yeah, it was that, yeah. So that kind of ruined the day basically, because we were just looking for me a shower. It must have been very hard for them because they all got in the sea as well and they were fine, and all they wanted to do was go and enjoy themselves, and I just basically ruined the day. And it wasn't just my mum, it was like a family outing. So yeah, that is an example of where someone wouldn't have been able to understand why I was so, because I have sensory issues around my skin and things touching me, and so yeah. Number 5. As a child, I don't suffer with this as much now, but as a child I had demand avoidance. So if someone told me to do something, I could not do it. I couldn't do it. And I can't explain this to someone now, but I couldn't. I never had problems with manners. I always used to say please and thank you, but on the odd occasion I didn't, or in a social situation and somebody told me to say thank you, I couldn't say it. I was even worse with sorry, and I'm still like that now actually. I hate it if someone tells me to say something, I can't say it because I've been told to say it. I'm not as bad, I was never as bad with doing things, but it was saying things. If someone told me to say something, I couldn't say it. I couldn't say it because it felt unnatural for me to do that, because it didn't come from my head, and I couldn't say it. And it was the same with sorry, and sorry was an even bigger thing for me because I rarely ever thought I was wrong. So if I thought I was wrong, I couldn't apologise, especially if someone told me to. So if your child is like this, and I'm just telling you that it's quite common amongst autistic children, try not to force them to say it, because it's really not good. It's really not good. And if your child doesn't say please, it's not going to affect anybody. It's really not. They do understand manners. I understand manners, but sometimes you forget as a young child, sometimes you forget to say thank you. But if you tell them, or if you know your child suffers with this and gets quite distressed by someone asking them to say something, which I do now, if someone said to say sorry, no. And I say sorry now quite a lot, because I mean, I drop something on the floor, I'm in my own room and I say sorry to myself. I'm saying sorry to myself because I've dropped something on the floor. I don't even know, sometimes I do over apologise. I know that a lot of autistic people do it with like tasks and stuff, and the like wording, and my mum has learnt to word things in a way that I am more likely to do a task, because if she just came in and was like, do this, you've not done the dishes, blah blah blah, blah, do this, do that, barked orders at me, no, I'd be like, go do it yourself. Speak to me in a nicer tone and maybe I will. Which, yeah, so if she said, Holly, could you please do me a favour and just do the dishes, I'm really busy today, and etc, I have more chance of doing it. So it is, for me, it's all about wording and phrasing. So it might be for your child as well, so maybe try that, maybe try wording things differently. We're not having a good day today, we're on a change of device. Yeah, it's not been a very successful filming day today, but you know, we're going with it, rolling with it. If your child does something wrong, I feel like communication is very important with your child, with your autistic child, because of the fact that it's the best way to know how they're feeling, because you're never going to understand, because like you said, like, you're not autistic, and as much as you try to understand, you can never understand unless you are autistic. So communication is so important. So if your child does something wrong, best way is to communicate why and find out why they did said behaviour, instead of instantly, out of anger, just punishing them for it. You need to try and find out what is the matter, why if there's an issue around like a sensory issue, or if there's something else going on, because there might be. And odds, I'd say 70% of the time there will be some kind of underlying reason to why your child behaved in that way. And it's like when your child is trying to prevent a meltdown, or she's being snappy, he's being snappy. That's my way of dealing with a meltdown. I am naturally quite snappy, I'm quite moody. This is kind of before a meltdown, and sometimes it prevents a meltdown. I am quite snappy, but it's to stop myself from trashing the room. Because all that energy and anger and frustration is still inside me, so it's going to come out in other ways. And if it does come out in other ways, you've got to try and find the root of the problem, like why I might be having this meltdown or on the verge of a meltdown, etc. That's probably the best way to try and solve a situation rather than just punishing them, because as a young child, they might not understand why you're even punishing them, which makes the whole thing pointless, because they will just do it again, because again, they probably couldn't help it. So I'm going to leave this video here. This is more towards advice I would want, like I've said 1,000 times. This might not be relevant to your child, but if you did watch anyway, thank you very much. And yeah, see ya.